Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, we get the right guests, we ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. Big show tonight. The export and import restrictions, LI, went to Parliament, or attempted, the Minister for Trade attempted to put it through Parliament. It did not succeed on Thursday. We have a big debate around it with policy analysts from very different perspectives on this list of 22 products that the government wants to place import restrictions on. What does this mean for you as a consumer and for Ghana as a player in the international market of trade? We'll be right back with our panel. It's an interactive show. Let's hear from you. Stay tuned. So welcome back. Tonight we're looking at the rationale behind the 22 items that Minister Katie Hammond abortively attempted to lay in the form of an LI in Parliament, the various arguments for and against, and what this would mean, not just for your pocket and your consumption, but for Ghana's place in international trade. In studio to discuss this, I have Sylvester Pagoro. He is a senior program officer for Third World Network. They do a lot on trade. Sly, thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening.
I also have from CATS International, Apia Kusi Adomako. He is the executive director. They are very concerned about competition and consumer protection. They have a view on the matter as well. Apia, good evening.
Good evening, Bernard.
We are also joined online by Senior Lecturer, Department of Economics, University of Ghana, Dr. Priscilla Chumesi-Bafo. She's joining us virtually to express her views on the matter. Doc, thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening.
Wonderful. Let me go a quick overview of this issue. First, Katie Hammond. Last week, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, he spoke to the press corps in Parliament and attempted to explain what he was trying to do with this LI. Let's hear him out. Then we'll show you another video where there was a debate on the floor and the minority said they were not going to agree to this. So that will give you some quick background to the matters.
Importation of certain goods, certain produce into the country. You'll recall that during the time of my vetting, I did indicate that as a product like the stomach of animals, I don't know whether it's intestine or something, they call it the stomach of animals, bladder, whatever, the top intestines. And the country had to put an amount of about $164 million towards the importation into the country of these items. Now I found that rather revolting. I don't particularly understand why items like this should be imported into the country. There is also the issue about importation of rice into the country. Of course, we consume more than we produce in this country, so we import. Now, the purpose of this particular LI is to sanitize what is it that we bring into the country. We are taking steps to ensure that in terms of rice, there is no poverty of rice in the country.
So that was Katie Hammond. He was speaking to the press. He wasn't exhaustive. Let me show you the full list of products that he was referring to. There are 22 products in that list. Rice, guts, bladders and stomach of animals, poultry, animal and vegetable oil, margarine, fruit juices, soft drinks, mineral water, noodles and pasta, ceramic tiles, corrugated paper and paper boards, mosquito coil and insecticides, soaps and detergents, motor cars, iron and steel, cement, plastics and plastic products, fish, sugar, clothing and apparel, biscuits and canned tomatoes. So those are the 22 items that we've put out. Now, let me also show you, he did say something about spending 164 million on offals. The Statistical Service has data on trade. They issued a trade vulnerability report recently, and we gleaned some information from their report on the amount of money we spent importing certain items. Let me show you our top 10 import items in that list just to see how they correlate. So top 10 imported food products, because quite a number of these things are food products. The top 10 food: cereal grains, worked but not rolled or flaked, or other cereals. That's 10% of our food imports is into that. It's 1.2 billion. Frozen cuts and offal of fowl, like chicken and duck and turkey. So frozen cuts, that's imported chicken plus offals, 868 million. Sugar in powder, crystal or granule form, 793 million. Palm oil and its fractions, whether or not refined but not chemically modified, 717 million. All right. Guts, bladders and stomachs of animals, this is what he was referring to, 598.4. Rice semi-rolled or wholly milled rice, 583. So that's a lot. And this is in Ghana cedis, by the way. Fish frozen excluding fish fillet and other fish. Mackerel excluding livers and roes, 321 million cedis. Palm oil and its fractions, whether or not refined but not chemically modified, 315 million Ghana cedis. Oil, cake and other solid residues of soya bean, 315. Undenatured ethyl alcohol of an alcoholic strength by volume of 80% or more, 307. When you put all other food products together outside this list, it's 5.2 billion. So the top 10 food products, 66%, the rest 44%. So 5.2 billion cedis for others. Now, let me show you how the debate on Thursday occurred, because he was not able to lay it. The minority said we're not going to play, but now the law says you need 2/3 to oppose it if it's not to go through. So that technically means that if he puts it on, unless some people in MPP disagree, they will get the nod. But for some reason, it didn't go through. Ni Aiko Okan filed this quick report highlighting the key issues that were discussed on the floor.
Don't say in whether Allah is laid in this house or not. No one, not even with respect to the Speaker. The Speaker has absolutely no right over whether a legislative instrument is laid in this house. That is the Constitution. All this threat, all this fact about if the Speaker has a right to view, has to whatever view. Mr. Speaker, it is revolting for them to suggest that they are here to represent the good people of Ghana. You think we are here to represent the bad people of whatever country? What the hell are you talking about? We, Mr. Speaker, have all been...
Mr. Minister,
I would rather, in deference to my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, I would rather. Mr. Speaker, but we have all been voted for to represent the good people of this country. We, as executive, take the view that it is in the interest of the country that we bring this. If we lay it, and in the end, Mr. Speaker, in the end, the House by a 2/3 majority wants to annul it, so be it. But it doesn't sit in the mouth of any particular person here to say that they would not allow us, Mr. Speaker, to do what we intend to do. And Mr. Speaker.
Minister, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about economics. When I was at school, Mr. Speaker, I wrote economic exams and my teacher gave me 38/40. 38/40. But even I don't talk the way he's talking about. And let's get to the law. I don't take legal lessons from him, because I am a British trained barrister at law. I don't take it from you. I do know very well, Mr. Speaker, about the World Trade Organization rules, and we have taken that very much into account before we drafted this regulation. Mr. Speaker, constitutionally to lay this, and we beseech you to allow us to raise it, and it is not within the ambit of those on this side, Mr. Speaker, to prevent a constitutionally properly prepared document to be laid in this house.
So that was Katie Amon, obviously unhappy. There was an earlier voice clip, we couldn't air that, where the minority was taking issue. Be that as it may, Kaseo Atuforsen addressed the press afterwards and said they were not going to support this because they thought it was going to increase corruption. They thought that it was going to lead to smuggling and other things. Another point to note, 6 business groups issued a statement this morning appealing to Parliament to reject this LI. GUTA, Ghana Union Trade Association, FABAC, Food and Beverage Association of Ghana, GIF, Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, CDAG, Auto Dealers of Ghana, Import and Export Association, and then GNCCI. Now, GNCCI is the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Now, the reason GNCCI is interesting is that if you look in the LI, there's a committee that's supposed to be formed. This is 3.1. A select strategic products import permit committee includes rep from Ministry of Trade, rep from Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Ministry of Finance rep, Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations rep, Interior Ministry rep, Bank of Ghana rep, Customs GRA rep, FDA rep, Ghana International Trade Commission rep, then 2 private sector, AGI, and Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They are on this committee. So to have GNCCI co-sign the letter to say no, I thought that was quite interesting. Last point, let me just read what the purpose of regulation is. The purpose of regulation is to establish a special import management mechanism for regulating and monitoring the importation of selected products, strategic products set out in the first schedule, the 22 listed, for the economic development of the country. B, streamline and rationalize the import bill of the country to improve balance of payments and economic stabilization. And C, provide measures to conserve foreign exchange, safeguard critical imports, and contribute to sustainable consumption. Let me start with Dr. Twumasi Bafo. Since you are digital, we can do yours quickly. I heard you at a program last week cautioning the government to be careful about this because you thought it could fly in the face of something. Can you elaborate briefly your views around this, Doc?
I think that overall this issue has been very contentious. And the reason is that, yes, there are a lot of stakeholders who are deeply vested. And at the end of the day, the implications of this restriction, if it is to come to pass, would have impact on everybody, essentially the general public. The reason is that it is also a bit surprising at the timing of the intervention. Why am I saying this? We know that in terms of WTO rules, yes, non-tariff barriers like quotas and quantity restrictions are something that the World Trade Organization frowns upon. But there are exceptions. So when you look at, for example, under Article 11 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, it indicates that quantitative restrictions on import and export against member countries are prohibited. But it makes some exceptions. And the exceptions are in specific circumstances, such as when it comes to goods and services that are related to national security issues, when a country is struggling with its balance of payment position, then some exceptions can be made for the country. So the surprising bit is, given that Ghana is at the forefront of championing AFTA, for example, we are trying to champion integrated free trade on the African continent. And so the country now bringing this in, it's sort of kind of, don't we believe in the agenda we are pushing in the first place? But on the other hand, we also agree that there is the need for some kind of domestic protection of industries. And the overall wholesale importation of everything that comes in, although there are tariffs that are imposed, it appears those are not enough. And so for that matter, you think that that probably is the rationalization for the introduction of this restriction on imports. The reason why the overall uproar is the potential for corruption and the potential for rent seeking that is embedded in a policy like this. The reason is that certainly the fact that we are importing the products or the commodities on the list is an indication that local capacity is not able to meet the domestic demand. And so the right question to ask at this point is that the items that have been listed, have we established that there is local capacity to meet the demand that exists in the market. And if local capacity is not able to meet the demand, then what are the strategies? Because if you are not careful, you create this artificial shortage, and then the licenses begin to be an avenue for corruption where people have to pay to get access to the licenses. They are given out to political associates, and then that means that, quote unquote, the general public suffers. The ultimate good of trying to develop the industrial base is not realized, but then a policy like that ends up enriching the few minority who are in power or associates of people in power. So essentially, I think that is my take on this for starters.
Final quick question to you. I have a list of the major imports into Ghana and the country of origin, and I'm quick to point out to you that most of the countries of origin are not Africa. For example, grains. So this is a chart I have. If you look on my screen, grains, Canada 37% is the number one. There's a source, followed by France. Actually, Russia, Russia 24%, France 10%. Meat is Belgium 20%, Brazil 18%, Poland 15%. Cereal, Vietnam 72%, India 8.9%. Animal or vegetable fat, Malaysia, Indonesia. The only product that has an African country in the top 5 is fish, Mauritania and Morocco. Animal products is Brazil. So my point is, this is not an after issue. These are not after countries. These are all, either Western countries or Southeast Asian countries. So we shouldn't, the fact that we are doing after does not mean we should import from Vietnam or Brazil or China or wherever, Prof.
Certainly, I agree with you, Bernard, but the issue is that, yes, when you look at some of the items that are on there, importation of water, for example, is ridiculous, if you ask me. But in the list of the countries you have indicated, you see that there is, I think, Morocco is somewhere, somehow in there. And so if you are not careful and you roll out a policy like this, you need to be careful with the origins of the imports of the commodities that are coming into your country. Ghana is a small country, so sometimes you may be able to get away with some of these things because perhaps China may not pick up a complaint against Ghana for imposing restriction of rice or sugar or something that is coming from China because perhaps our demand is not that significant to make an impact on their exports. But the point I am trying to make is that I think that the discussion on import restriction with respect to the use of quantitative restrictions, it's a bit outdated, if you ask me. The use of tariff barriers are more transparent measures of trying to control importation rather than using quantitative restrictions. The reason is that with this quantitative restriction, the evidence shows that you create an imperfect market where rent-seeking thrives, and then you create a great atmosphere for corruption. And so when you look at this, yes, we are saying that Ghana ought to be careful with walking this trajectory because you may never know a good that may be coming from South Africa. So the list you indicated, there's Morocco in there. I'm sure there are a number of things that are coming from Egypt, fruit juices and others come from South Africa and others, so that you do not shoot yourself in the foot by on one hand trying to promote after and then on the other. But at the end of the day, I think the analysis should be what would be the impact of such a restriction on the ordinary Ghanaian? And when you look at some of the commodities in there, some of them have become quite important staples on the menus of the average Ghanaian. Staples such as rice, poultry commodities. What do we have in there? We have fish. we have sugar. So for example, sugar, I am not aware of a company that produces sugar from scratch in Ghana. So then what is the strategy? Why do we have sugar on there? Is it because of the adverse health impact of excessive sugar intake? Some countries try to use taxes on sugar to try to discourage people from eating excessive sugar. But so long as there is no domestic capacity for production of sugar, then it beats my mind why a commodity like sugar is on the list. Rightfully, when you look at a commodity like oils, vegetable oils, we know that, for example, the introduction of benchmark discount values negatively affected producers of oil in the country, according to AGI. So something like this, if we are able to estimate their production capacity and then try to limit the import of oils to make up for the deficit, I think it is not a bad idea, but the implementation and the potential for corruption is something that needs to be looked at.
Thank you very much, Doc, for your time. That was Dr. Priscilla Chimezie-Bafo, raises some number of points. Let me come to Sylvester. She mentions WTO, which I know you are very familiar with. Before we get into anything she said, what are your general thoughts, listening to the minister, portions of the debate, reading the full document? What is your sense of this?
Thank you, Bernard, and good evening to your viewers. I think there are a number of things that we need to consider. First of all, every country in the world, protects some kind of local production. It's very clear. If you want to export rice to Japan, your rice will get rotten at the ports because they have a tariff level of about 600%. I mean, they want to, to raise the production. If you want to export, let's say, sugar to EU, I mean, you have problem getting the sugar into the EU market. There are certain products into the US market they cannot get there. So generally, countries try to, protect their economies, So no country is a free for all. There's no country like a free for all, country like that. However, looking at what the minister is trying to do, we need to be very, very careful so as not to cause much more harm. And I will explain that. First of all, if you want to protect the local production or to raise the local production of the goods, what are the accompanying measures in terms of dealing with the supply side constraints? I'll give you an example. When you look at the EU, when the EU wanted to raise the production of poultry in the EU, they looked at the whole value chain, the soya, the maize, and the fish, and all the things that you need before you can get chicken on your table. They did all that. They subsidized all that. That's what the final product. So all those within the chain is well thought out for. And what he's trying to do, we might actually run into problems. The lecturer from the University of Ghana actually mentioned the WTO provisions. First of all, if you look at the GATT Article 11, which is for all countries, whether developing or developed country, you have that. You can invoke that based on balance of payment problems that you have as a country. We also have what they call the Article 18 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It's for developing countries. And so you can also invoke that if you have balance of payment problems. And so if you look at the document, the minister is saying, look, they want to deal with what they call balance of payment problems and also conserve foreign exchange for the country. Yes, you can invoke these reasons, to do that. But the key question is, of all these products, what are the level of domestic production and what are the policy measures that you need to raise the measures? A colleague at the University of Ghana actually made a point that, look, in terms of the quantitative restrictions, under the WTO, what we call the Uruguay round, countries actually converted their non-tariff measures into tariffs. And so Ghana, for instance, our bound tariff for most agricultural products is 99%. You can actually raise your tariff on your rice to 99 without any problem because you don't have any. I mean, that is you're right. The developed countries like the US, EU, Japan, they can actually raise their tariff to any level. That's what we call the imbalances in the WTO. Even as when Ghana can raise up to 99, developed countries can raise more than 200, 300, 400. What we call the imbalances in the WTO, how it was crafted, you know, and all that. And so the little space we have at the WTO, you can use it. And so you can use it. Instead of going the quantitative restrictions, you can actually go the tariff way, and that will be better because, like what Malaysia did, if you want to grow your rice, just raise the tariff on the rice and use it to support the local production of the same product. You know, and that's like you don't have you can be justified and under the WTO rules. There's a point she made about the after bid. You know, in the after we have 3 products, 90%. The what we call the A product, B and C, 90%, 7%, and 3%. The 3% are what we call the excluded list. Those ones you can actually protect them. You can protect them. You are not going to open up. 7% are what we call the sensitive products, and the 90% is what we call that one you open up. And so depending on where the country is coming from, where the product is coming from, which country is coming from, you can actually protect those products, whether from your 3%, 7%, or 90.
Okay.
And so if a fish comes from Mauritania, you need to check whether in our sensitive list we have 3%, the fish within the 7, 90, or the 3%. Right. Yeah, so these are the
it's getting a bit technical. I'll take a short breather. When I come back, I'll take Apia's views on the matter as well. So I'm not very clear whether you are saying right or wrong. You're basically saying it depends. So I'll come and get that clarity. Apia will also speak to us. We're trying to understand the implications of this LI that the Minister of Trade tried to lay on the floor, but which was not successful on Thursday. Stay with us.
We are back, bringing you the latest lineup from Betway. Betway starts strong with their front 2, with Free Play Friday and Swipe Bet. In the middle, you've got all the control with Cash Out and Build a Bet. Plus, with Win Boost, you can boost your sports bet. At the back, they have Smart Picks and the partial daily jackpot.
You always get way more with Betway.
This
advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly. No under 18. Terms and conditions apply. Betway. Get win.
Finally, anyone can become a household.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hugo Flip, a real estate gaming platform that allows you to play and stand a chance of winning a house or cash or consolidated values, such as savings towards a house. Simple and easy to play. Visit www.hugoflip.com. Buy a ticket to enter the game. Wait for the end of the game to enjoy the win. Anyone can win. Flip it or own it. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Play responsibly, not for persons below 18 years, and gaming can be addictive.
Welcome back. The point of view tonight is looking at the LI to restrict imports of 22 products. Mr. Katie Amon tried to do this. There was a debate in Parliament. The minority said they will not agree. The minister is going to lay it at some point. We've been discussing this. Professor Dr. Priscilla Chumisi-Bafo joined us earlier on Zoom. Sylvester Baguru, Program Officer, TWN. I have Apia Adumakukusi in studio as well. Apia, so what angle are you coming from? Is it consumer protection angle or just general competitiveness angle? What angle is CAS looking at this from?
So I think I wear a lot of hats. So sometimes it's difficult to limit myself within the framework of consumer protection.
Okay.
So let's look from the economics point of view. Then we look at efficiency and the consumer welfare.
Okay.
So I think Ghana trying to restrict importation of some goods is not bad because a country cannot open its borders for every goods to come in. We need to be able to improve upon our local capacity to be able to produce and export to other markets, like most countries have been doing, so that at least the cedi can have rest from the gravitational pull from the
US dollar.
Yes. However, if you want to do any of these measures, you need to use more of a market approach than regulatory approach. The market approach is that we need to invest in the local, as my colleague, my friend Sylvester said. When the EU was trying to do their poultry industry, they identify what are the key things that they need to target. But here it appears somebody wakes up one morning, goes to office and say, look, let's do this. In most countries, the literature tells us that it's about 4 to 5 years measures, whereby they identify what product that they want to restrict, number one. What are the measures that they need to do to be able to improve upon local capacity? And also what are the constraints of the local production? Once you address all of these things, then you give the market and the consumers and businesses a bit of a notice that, look, let's say from 2026, there's not going to be any import to the country because now we have an excess supply of rice, wheat, or sorghum in the country. Here is the case, we don't have these commodities in excess. And whenever I want to do this, the problem is that it's going to cause the prices of the goods to shoot up. And then consumers are going to be worse off. There's going to be a rent seeking. And then it's also going to we'll see politicians trying to capitalize on this thing to make money one way or the other. So I think that we will need to go back to the drawing board. At least we're supposed to have seen all these measures in the 2024 budget. What are the specific measures that the 2024 budget is addressing on this in terms of support to some of these products that we want to be able to stop importing? Let's say that we are going to invest in aquaculture, we are going to do this, identify the supply chain and invest heavily in those things. All these measures never came. We didn't see these things in the 2024 budget, and yet the minister is operating as if government runs in silos. I think government runs as a collective enterprise, and so whatever that the trade minister goes to parliament to do must have been thought of by the finance minister and financial allocations being made in the budget. But here is the case, we are not seeing this. So for that reason, I think that it is not the best. So I would want to request that maybe we can put this thing on hold. Of course, we want to save the cedis, but the solution that you are bringing should not be worse than the problem. You know, this is not the first time we are bringing import restriction. In 2016, there was this LI 2244 that was supposed to regulate the importation of cement into the country. And they formed a committee, and the powers of the ministers contained in the Import and Export Act at 503, the minister was able to give license to some importers to bring cement into the country when the local cement manufacturers believe that they have enough in-store capacity. And so if history is something to go by, I think that regulatory approach doesn't help. Let's go by market approach. Because look, if the local products that we are producing are of good quality and they are of competitive price, I'm sure that nobody will waste money to import these products. Even now today, for example, people have stopped importing toilet rolls into the country because the local manufacturers are doing well on that product. All because...
But which comes first? Is it some local producers will say that availability of cheap imports undermines their price competitiveness. So sometimes you may need to put either tariff or non-tariff barriers to give local producers the breathing space. AGI agrees. They believe that, look, we all know that the Americans, the Chinese, every developed country subsidizes heavily their local producers. So if you go to WTO, there are 3 issues with agric: export competitiveness, market access, domestic support. Domestic support is the big issue in Western countries. They support their guys in a way that makes it almost impossible for a Ghanaian farmer to compete. And you can say the same for other products. So if you say we should produce enough, what money will you use to produce enough to be able to then say we have enough rice and therefore we shouldn't import? You always have to start somewhere. And if you listen to the minister very carefully, if you read the statement, they're talking about FX, they're talking about supporting local production to be competitive. So without saying I agree with everything they're saying, we cannot follow your approach to say let's give ourselves 4 years, because we will never produce rice cheaper than Vietnam or Thailand.
No,
then the Thai government strategically will support Vietnamese Thai rice or Vietnamese rice farmers in a way that a Ghanaian guy can never compete.
Yeah, that is true. So if we are not just giving ourselves 4 or 5 years in vacuum, we must identify what are the things that we need to do as a country to be able to make our rice sector very competitive. What support that needs to come from the exchequer? What support that is supposed to come from the academia? What are support that needs to come from the logistic and the logistic and the supply chain? All these things are a whole composite thing that we need to do. If we don't do this and one day we wake up and we say, look, let's put tariffs on this, let's restrict, quantitative restriction on this product, what it means is that we are going to rather make some people richer and then the poor Ghanaian consumers will suffer most. And I think we've seen it in so many times in the past, whereby some of these restrictions are imposed, prices of goods goes up in the market, and then consumers have to pay more. So one of the bane we have in our public policy in this country is that when policies are coming, I don't want to say that politicians don't think through it. I think policies need to be very holistic. You need to look at the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, but let me push you a bit on this. I was at the program at the Ministry of Agric where they presented a document on planting for food and jobs. And the Minister of Agric put out about 8 commodities and their current, what he calls, base self-sufficiency. And then he compares that to his immediate short and medium and long-term plan for sufficiency. So for example, paddy rice. Production in metric tons is 1.2 billion or 1.2 million. 1.2 million. Self-sufficiency is 46%. All right. When you come to things like poultry, it's only 5%. So poultry, we have a long way to go. But rice, based on his projection, by 2027, we should be producing more than we eat. Need. So my point is that there are, and he does this for maize, rice, soya bean, sorghum, plantain, yam, cassava, tomato, pepper, onion, and poultry. I can put that up on the screen later. So at least the Agric Ministry seems to be aligned, because this was discussed just a month ago. And he's basically saying for a lot of these food products, if we follow PFJ equals to 2.0, we should be able to get to self-sufficiency. So when you were saying we are working in silos, I'm not sure about finance. But when I come to Agric, I see some what do you call it? Some synergy or some synchronicity there between what the Agric Ministry is trying to say and what the Trade Ministry is trying to do.
Yes, but when you go and ask farmers whether they are receiving the support that government talk of, is also another problem. And for example, we've seen that this year, 2023 budget, less than, I've forgotten the exact percentage of the money that went into the agri sector. The finance ministry will make a huge allocation, but not all of the money will go to support farmers. And so we need to be very careful in following these statistics. I think that we need to ensure that actions, we match our words with action to in a way that we can support the Ghanaian farmers to be able to produce very well and compete. Of course, we used to subsidize our farmers, but then in the IMF time in the 80s and 90s, they asked us to stop subsidizing, providing subsidies to our Ghanaian farmers. And that is why today food is one of the highest drivers of inflation, because we spend much more on food than even on clothing if you live in Ghana. And so government policy we should see a synergized policy by government in trying to make food more affordable and food more sustainable and more in the way that people can.
So, can you comment on this point around domestic support for food production? How developed countries do it, and we keep saying, let's produce enough rice. When we get to the point where we are self-sufficient in rice, then we can impose more barriers.
Okay. Let me say that the agricultural products are the most controversial in terms of trade rules. And that is why within the WTO, the World Trade Organization, developed countries have actually prevented the opening up of their sectors. So if you go to EU, for instance, the agricultural products, you can't touch them. You cannot send agricultural products to EU because they know the importance of that sector for food security and for the whole industrial development. If you go to the US, the same. If you go to Japan, the same. And that's why I was saying that during the Uruguay round, it's around that they negotiated the WTO and all that. What they did was that they asked developing countries to convert their non-tariff measures to tariffs. And so if you converted your non-tariff measure to tariff, you have, let's say, most agricultural products for African countries, 99%. It means that you can actually raise your tariff level to 99. But the developed countries can actually raise more than 100%.
But they also subsidize heavily.
They subsidize.
So the price that they are coming, even if you added the tariff, they are still at a very low price.
Exactly. They still have a very low price. You can have a poultry product leaving EU on a ship, it will land Ghana, and it will cost less than the Ghanaian chicken. And so you ask yourself, there are some measures that you need to take in the country in terms of the factors that determine your production. What is your energy cost? What are the things that make production very expensive in the country? These things we have to be clear on them. And that's why I gave the example of Malaysia. They wanted to support their sector. What they did is they raised a tariff on the product. Then they raised the revenue and they use it to subsidize the local production of the product. That within the WTO you can do. I mean, I give you an example.
So your point is that if Mr. Hammond had brought an ally to raise tariffs on some of these products,
yes,
it would have been less controversial than import. But what's wrong with import? If you read it carefully, he's saying that they have a committee that will look at our FX, look at local production, and then periodically review the volume of import licenses to give. So basically they are trying to manage demand for FX because it's not just a question of availability of food or these products. So some of the products there, and if you listen to his first interview, he's saying you are importing intestines and guts. What is the nutritional value of that? Meanwhile, you spend almost $170 million, which places pressure on the city. So it's not really a question of just local production. He's saying that the currency fell by 50% last year. We don't want that to happen again. And therefore, we reserve the right to say, if you want to bring in offals and intestines of animals, we have to tell you if we think we have enough dollars to even support this. Do you get it?
You know, you have the economic reason for doing that. You also have to look at the legal provisions. So under the WTO, you can actually raise. I mean, because if you want to use quantitative restrictions in the WTO, you have a problem. But you can actually use the tariff, which you have.
Didn't Nigeria ban rice recently? Nigeria closed their borders to rice for like 6 months.
Yes,
Nobody was able to say anything. The WTO is there.
Countries can do that, but you have to face the consequences. But what I'm saying is that as a country like Ghana, there are other instruments that you can use to protect to grow your local industry. There are other instruments. And they're giving you the legal provisions and the economic justification. And actually, fact, what the EU did is to make sure that they look at the whole value chain. We have to look at what do we need to produce the poultry products. You need fish, you need soya, you need the maize, you need all that. They subsidize. Ghana can do the same thing. And so if you don't do that, the point I'm trying to make is that if all these things are not done, and you might have a problem. For instance, people are trading. They have livelihood trading, import and export. They're trading. How do they transition out? And for me, in my view, what we can do is to have a much more discussion, much more consultation. Some people import sugar, and they use the sugar for other production of other, let's say, yogurt or something in the country. If I don't get the sugar, how do I produce my yogurt? I mean, that's one example you can use. And so SMEs are using that. If you restrict the importation of sugar, you might cause disruption of the production of some products within the country. And so all that I'm saying is that it's a good idea. Countries protect and grow their local industry. Very brilliant idea, but you have to think through and make sure that all the measures you need to put in place are in place. Other than that, you cause a lot of disruption in the country.
Apia, any comments?
And also, I also want to say is that, and I still want to reiterate what I said. Any measures that you want to do with regards to this is something that cannot be done overnight. It requires a thought, plan, and action to allow the industry to be able to prepare for it. So I think it's still fair to ask the minister, possibly the minority can ask the majority, that what are the measures that government has put in place to make sure that the prices of these goods do not go up once the importation. Of course, the offers and those things, I don't think we need them. Even health and safety wise, we don't need them. But the other products that we need to be very careful to make sure that we don't allow others to profit from the sufferings of Ghanaians. So, fine, let's go back, let's plan, maybe 2025 or 2026. By that time,
let's look at the list closely. I have
one by one.
Rice. Rice, obviously, we don't produce enough yet.
Yes.
So you have a problem with this. But obviously, guts, bladders, and stomach of animals.
Those ones, I don't think they are essential commodities. And I think we can.
So both of you think that the restriction on guts, bladders, and stomach of animals may not be such a bad idea?
Yeah.
Yes.
What about poultry?
Poultry, I think as of now, the domestic capacity demand still exceeds the supply.
We are only 5% production of. We are only 5% base sufficiency.
Yes.
So we almost all our poultry is imported.
You see, poultry can be a strategic product in terms of employment. If you look at the value chain, the value chain, I keep on talking about the value chain because that is where they create jobs for in the country. So you look at what you need, the fish that you need, the soya you need, the maize that you need in order. So that whole value chain is very important. And so you need to think through and make sure that you start from the beginning to the end. And so you can actually work the whole value chain on the whole sector, so that when we are saying that we are restricting the importation of, or we are raising a tariff on poultry, we know that we are putting a whole lot of a chain. A lot of countries, a lot of products are coming from Europe, Holland, even Russia. A lot of poultry products come from Russia and all that. And this is what they did. They supported the sector. And countries, we can do that as a country. We can do.
We'll take a break and look at the rest of the products. Still on the point of view, 22 products on Katie Amon's list. So far, the airline has not been laid. We don't know whether it will happen this week. Stay with us.
We are back, bringing you the latest lineup from Betway. Betway starts strong with their front two, with Free Play Friday and Swipe Bet. In the middle, you've got all the control with Cash Out and Build a Bet. Plus, with Win Boost, you can boost your sports bets. At the back, they have Smart Picks and the Partial Daily Jackpot.
You always get way more with Betway.
This advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly. No under 18. Terms and conditions apply. Betway. Get way.
Still on the point of view, looking at the controversial LI on selected strategic products, just to read a few more things on it. So I think the most controversial part of this is Schedule 13. The minister may grant or refuse to grant an import permit after consideration of the written recommendation of the Import Permit Committee. So even though there's a 13-member committee, the minister is the one with the discretion. I think this is where the most controversial thing is. So if this were tidied up to just make it an institutional-based, merit-based management, would that be better? Because the LI gives the minister all the power. So the people recommend and the minister can say yes or no. Yeah. If they had said, because you have BOG, you have Trade Ministry, Finance Ministry, Agric Ministry, and then you have a couple of other agencies, and then you have AGI and GNCCI. That seems like a lot of competent people together.
Yeah.
Will this have been easier for you if the minister took himself out of it?
I think the LI takes its power from the Parent Act, Export and Import Act, Act 503 of 1995, and Section 12 of the Act says that gives the power for the minister to regulate, to issue, to deny, or to accept. And so I don't think there can be a departure from what the Parent Act says. But maybe if we want to look at it, maybe we may have to amend the Parent Act so that the sole power given to the minister to import can be contained. You know, in 2016, a similar thing happened with the cement market, whereby the cement committee said that there was no need for any import of cement, and then the then minister gave import license to a company to import cement into the country, and so this.
So he overruled the committee's recommendation.
Yes, committee's recommendation, and of course the law says that the minister has the power to do so. So that is where discretion can be abused.
Any comment on the way this is organized? So we can't change the minister's role in this.
I think there's what they call the process defect in terms of the consultation. You know, if we look at the committee, the LI lists a number of people, institutions that should be part of the committee. Yeah. I think if you widen the list to include some other stakeholders, you know, that can have a broad consultation. Some countries, what they do is that they tell you, look, the vision of this country is this. Your prosperity depends on the prosperity of the nation, and these products are strategically selected to build a country. This is a vision we're pursuing. And when people are clear with it, they are ready. They can shift. When people are clear with the vision that you have, they are prepared to shift. I think that's what the problem is. You can have an idea. I mean, the idea is good to support local production, but I think the process is a bit defective.
Right. Yeah. Let's go to the rest of the products. So, animal and vegetable oil, margarine, fruit juices, soft drinks, mineral water. I don't know if mineral water you agree, because we have quite a number of water production companies here. Of course, they are not allowed to produce. The foreign ones are not allowed to produce sachet, but the local produce both sachet and bottled, and we have quite a number of them. Why should we be importing mineral water to Ghana? Yeah. But does that mean we should just ban it completely, or can the committee say for the next 6 months? Because if you pick the things you say we don't need, like guts, bladder, and stomach of animals, mineral water, it can still save us a lot of dollars. If they say for the next 6 months, no import. So the idea may not necessarily be bad.
It's not a bad idea.
It's like the list is too big. But if they limit it, so I'm just trying to ask you, you will support a mineral water restriction, wouldn't you?
Yes, I will support.
You will support as well, wouldn't you?
Margarine also.
You support margarine as well?
Yes.
Why? You think the companies produce enough margarine here?
Yes.
Wilmar, Liver, Unilever, and
Upfield.
So we have quite a number of margarine producers.
Yes.
What about noodles and pasta?
We have enough
local producers.
Yes. Even to the extent that when you go to Europe and America, in the US shops, you find noodles from Ghana.
In the US shops?
Yes.
So you don't need to import noodles. What about ceramic tiles?
I think we are doing very well, but most of these things must be.
Normally, it's very important to look at economic values. I mean, when you say economic value, all the products. I mean, I don't have much more information on this in terms of the capacity to transform the economy. You know, you can look at the product on the face value, but when you look at the value chain involved and all that, it can.
In the import of the, we are saying that. Don't forget, we are also looking at balance of payment.
Yes.
So beyond the value chain analysis, you can look at simply how much dollars you demand every year to import this.
Yes.
If those dollars are not demanded, the city is stronger.
Yes.
So what are the value chains? Mineral water. I think between Voltic and all these people, they can give us enough mineral water to drink for the rest of our lives. Yeah. So why do we import mineral water?
We don't need that
import. So the minister may not be that wrong.
No, the minister may not be that wrong, but there are some other commodities that the mere operationalization of the LI could send the prices.
So should he separate them, or could he have added an analysis of the state of the local production of these? So if he had attached and said poultry, we are 46%. in local production. Mineral water, we are 99%. We don't need. Then you can then say.
What I would say is that if the Ministry of Trade can tell us these are the measures that would deal with the supply side constraints of these products in the country, that can give us a better debate. That can give us a better debate, so that we know that if we raise the tariff on rice to 99%, we know that we can get rice to 50 as a country. So the idea is a good idea. All countries do that. You need to grow your local industry. It's very important. But how you do is very important. So that is a bit of. I mean, what are the measures? What are the measures in terms of, for instance, we have the light industrial sectors, like the clothing and all. These are light industrial products. In fact, when we're campaigning against the economic partnership agreement, when ECOWAS actually moved from 70 to 75% in market opening, the 5% was actually protecting these light industrial products. And these light industrial products, that's where you learn the industrial discipline before you can go to heavy industrialization. And so when ECOWAS
so you seem to be hinting that a lot of these products here, we should be restricting the imports.
Yes, we should be restricting the import. But
yet you can't agree fully with the minister.
The point is that it has to be done properly.
Well, but at least it has to start. So he has listed 22. Tell me which ones are supposed to go out, and then we pick them out. No. And the ones that are supposed to be there, we start with those. Isn't that a simpler way of doing it?
Well, I think that's the best way. Look at the low-hanging one.
Yeah, you've mentioned water, you mentioned offals, you mentioned margarine. Mosquito coil. Do you need to keep importing mosquito coil?
No, we don't need to import mosquito coils.
Soaps and detergents?
No. These are the four within the light. That's what we produce in the country. Yeah.
Cement. We have enough cement production companies.
But you see, we shouldn't be sitting here making those things. We need to be backed by evidence in terms of the data. What is the local capacity? What is the demand? And this is the best way to be able to make that assessment. So I think this is the key.
So the trade ministry has the most accurate data on imports and also on production.
And they could have also provided all this information to help the public debate.
But you have to put it in the public domain. Is it not strategic information for our nations? I don't know. Do all countries put out the level of production of everything?
Oh, but some of these things are public notice that you can go to statistical service and put in requests that you can get it.
No, I'm talking about the volume of production locally.
Yes.
It should be available.
It should be available. I mean, these are market studies, information that people need.
So if it was a data-backed list showing you our self-sufficiency in these products, there will be no dispute that there needs to be some restriction. But until that is supplied, we can't support all the list.
Yes.
Same thing for you.
Yeah, but you need proper consultation. Even the way he presented the LI in Parliament is problematic.
Yeah.
You need a buy-in of the minority. And so you call let's sit at the table. This is a country we have. This is a vision we're pursuing. This is these are the things we need to do as a country. Right. We have a huge unemployment problem in the country. And if we do this will generate this kind of, I think people will buy. The buy-in is very important. Wonderful. You can have a very brilliant idea, but if the buy-in is poor, it will fail. And so all that's it's a nice idea. It's a good idea. But I think proper consultation and a much broader consultation
will be required.
Help us, yeah.
Thank you. We've been talking to policy experts, really. Sylvester Bagoro, Senior Program Officer, Third World Network Africa. Apia Adomaku Kusi is the Executive Director of CATS International here in Ghana. Earlier on, we had Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Bafo. The jury is still out. We wait for Minister Hammond to do this week. But you notice the empty seats in Parliament. That's another issue we have been discussed. So many parliamentarians not interested in this very important debate. Call your MP and ask them where they were when the debate was going on. And let them know you are not happy that they didn't take part in the debate. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.